Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Mod Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at a subscriber request and doing a review of the dual heat swords. Now the dual heat swords are one of the oldest melee weapons in the game, coming in update 6.2 back when the game was still in closed beta, and immediately became one of the best melee weapons in the game at the time. Now the question is, have the dual heat swords still got what it takes to compete with the newer melee weapons, and still deserve a place as one of the best melee weapons in the game? Now the dual heat swords themselves do a total of 45 damage a hit, with almost all of it coming as slash damage, making it the second highest dual sword weapon in the game, only just behind the Nami Skylar. Further to that, the dual heat swords come with a very high slide attack damage, the ability to hit multiple targets at once, and even a dash polarity slot. However, its main feature is that its slam attacks radiate out a blast of fire damage, setting all enemies in a certain radius on fire. Now although the fire damage isn't enough to kill enemies of a certain level, the heat proc that affects the enemies in the radius is often longer than any knockdown that a lot of slam attacks do. And it really does give the weapon a decent amount of crowd control, especially when you start getting swamped by infested. Now there's only a couple of downsides to the dual heat swords really. Firstly is the lack of knockdown can be a double-edged sword. The fire damage that the weapon radiates out instead of the knockdown does nothing to mechanical corpus units, things like the mowers. Secondly, the weapons do have a reasonably high stamina cost, a trait and a downside that pretty much every single dual weapon suffers from. Now the dual heat swords themselves are somewhat of an anomaly within the world of melee weapons. Now I'm not sure if this is by design or whether they were just forgotten, but they do not come with any polarity in the stance slot, the only melee weapon in the game to do so. Now this can be a blessing and a curse, however, because although this frees you up to use either of the two stance mods, it also means that you do not benefit from the additional mod space that the polarity match gives you. Now because of that lack of stance polarity, you've got the ability to use either stance, and there are a choice of two to which you can use, Swirling Tiger and Crossing Snakes. Now the choice of stance really is absolutely personal preference, as they are both very good stances. However, the one I go for is Swirling Tiger. The Winding Claws combo that it does with the flurry of strikes in the middle of the combo increases the damage a huge amount, and then finishes with a slam attack at the end, proccing that heat damage and potentially finishing off any low health enemies, or at least stunning them so you can carry on your own melee attacks. Okay, so let's start to mod the dual heat swords. We've got a few mods that are going to remain the same between all three of the builds. We've got Swirling Tiger, which is going to be our stance mod, Jagged Edge for slash damage in that dash polarity, Pressure Point for melee damage, Fury for attack speed, Spoiled Strike for further damage, but it is going to reduce the attack speed, for which we're going to use Quickening just to counteract that attack speed loss. Now for Grenier, we're going to go Molten Impact and Shocking Touch for radiation damage against those heavily armoured units in the Grenier. And then we're going to go with Warrior's Grip to translate some of the incoming fire into stamina, so you can keep your block up for longer, which is really nice against those ranged units. Now for the Corpus, we've got exactly the same again, even with the Warrior's Grip, but this time we're going with Shocking Touch and Northwind for magnetic damage against those shielded units in the Corpus, relying on that slash damage to deal with the more fleshy units, things like your techs and your crewmen. Now for the Infested, again we've got the same build, but this time we're going with Virulent Scourge and Shocking Touch for corrosive damage. Virulent Scourge can be picked up from tier 4 Void Vor as one of the mods that he drops, and then we're going to go with a Life Strike, which is going to help you to keep your health up, especially against things like Toxic Ancients, plus the toxic drones that fly around in the infested missions. Now on to my recommendation as to whether I feel these weapons are worth the effort and the use of a catalyst, and my answer is absolutely yes they are. Now while they suffer a little against non-fleshy targets like Mechanical Corpus or the Grenier in general, the dual heat swords absolutely tear apart the infested and fleshy Corpus. One thing I love about doing this series is going back and looking at weapons that I've not used in the longest time, and finding out they're actually really very good, and that I've just forgotten how good they can be. The dual heat swords is one of those weapons. While they might not have the ability to go super high like the best melee weapons can, weapons like the Dragon Meccana or the Sindo Prime, They're a huge amount of fun and definitely worth a second look if you've forgotten about these weapons. Now onto the maximization of the weapon, and do I feel it requires and deserves former? And the answer to that is yeah, I do feel it does. But realistically only needs one, and that is to put the polarity of your chosen stance mod into the stance mod slot. And this is going to give you enough mod points to be able to put any build on that you wish, especially since it already comes with a dash polarity on the weapon. Now once that's done, I would max Warrior's Grip, and then if you have it available, to change out Jagged Edge for Buzzkill. Although if you feel you do not need that Warrior's Grip, then change that out for Buzzkill and really maximise that slash damage, and it really does help boost the damage output of the weapon. So in essence, decent damage, decent attack speed with that fire proc on the slam attacks. The dual heat swords are a very decent melee weapon, most effective against the infested but able to hold their own against the other factions. Many thanks to Tankntia for suggesting this weapon to review. I'd forgotten about these and will definitely get a lot more playtime now. If anybody else has any suggestions for weapons to review, feel free to leave a comment on the video and I will review them as soon as possible. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like and to subscribe, and I shall see you in the next episode.